Hey everybody, it's Chris Rand again with Rand and Rand in our video guide to successful copywriting. This is lesson 5, writing original content, and this is going to be the last in this first series of lessons before we move on to some additional lessons on associated things with copywriting, including how to choose your hourly rates, some best practices for finding reputable resources online, the art of getting to the primary source in your research, and other tips to help you in your copywriting journey in your career. So this lesson is going to be very brief. I just want to review some of the subjects we covered in the last 4 lessons, as well as lean into what we're doing in terms of writing after working on all of these materials that we talked about. So as you probably recall, we have this sources page, which you can see here. This is actually a past assignment that I did that I've just repurposed for this lesson. And as you can see, as before, I've crossed out a lot of the material that I used for my outline, which is right over here. And then the draft is right over here, and we'll look at that in just a second. Now, you might notice that although I pulled a lot of content over here, a lot of it I didn't even use. I really just looked through here, and although some of this seemed relevant when I was doing my research, much of it just I ultimately decided wasn't good enough for my article, or I didn't have enough space. So in a lot of ways, it's good. I had an abundance of content, more than I even needed. So as you can imagine, when I got to the writing portion, I was in pretty good shape. You'll notice that these sections, this has black text that's highlighted. Now these are actually internal sources here. It's content from the actual company that I was writing for. And that's why it's black text. And I highlighted that text in order to differentiate the sources. So it's multiple blog posts and things like that are published on that that company's website. And then if you scroll down, you can see all my external sources here, like we discussed before. I use that highlighting technique again here. As you can see, I have several links to Forrester pieces, for example. So it's just a way to differentiate between those articles, even though the publisher is the same. So same principle, just a little additional color coding technique there. And if we flip over to my outline, you can see how I used all that content here. And you can see some of the text is also crossed out here. So here I'm using the same technique when I get to the outline as I did with my sources page. As I'm using this content to inspire and inform my actual writing, which is over here, I'm crossing it off of my outline. And it gives me almost, a little sense of accomplishment as I go, which you might find helpful as you're sort of trudging through these assignments. And I can just kind of like cross things off as I go and then move on through my draft over here. Now, when I do a draft, I don't expect it to be polished right away. I mean, it comes out a little choppy sometimes, but I get the content in there and the ideas that I need in order to get where I want to go, including some helpful data and quotes. As you can see, I have a direct quote from Forrester right here. If we scroll down, we see another one from McKinsey, and so on and so forth. World Economic Forum, all reputable sources. And then I just work on my draft like I would any other type of writing. I review it, I edit it, I modify it, I send it to the client. If the client comes back with changes, I do more changes and so on, and then we're sort of off to the races in terms of our content. So that's the end of this portion of our lessons. That's lesson number 5. I just wanted to reiterate, we'll be going over some other best practices that are not really in the process writing portion of this series of lessons. It's more about best practices associated with being a copywriter, finding sources, and so on. Just some helpful tips that we'll sort of grow and expand on as we develop this guide. So thanks again for tuning in. If you want to know more, visit rand-rand.com. You can go to the Contact Us section. We get back to people really quickly, so feel free to send us some questions there. Looking forward to connecting in the future, and thanks again.